series of debates, and we'll talk a little bit about tubular versus endoscopic surgery. There's a lot of interest in tubular surgery, a lot of interest in endoscopic surgery, and we figured we'll put a few debates in here. There's a lot of technology when it comes to MIS, navigation, tubular surgery, endoscopic, robotic surgery, and we put this all together for a book that we published a few years ago. But it's really not about the size of the incision, it's really about the decision, right? That's, at the end of the day, whether you do something open or MIS, it should not be the goal to do everything minimally invasive. And I think that a great example for that, in my opinion, is thoracic disc herniations, because the stakes are so high. Patients can really get in trouble with an operation that's not done properly, or where you're not really careful. This is a classification that was published a year ago or so by Uribe and some of the other surgeons involved. And it kind of really nicely outlines the different pathologies that you see in the thoracic spine, from simple disc herniation here, then to larger disc herniations. And the question is, which ones should be treated in what way? And again, the reason being, because you can really get into trouble, or the patient can get into trouble if the operation is not being done properly. And I'm not saying that you can't, that you are doing things wrong if you use endoscopy, but I think it's really when is endoscopy a safe and an effective way of treating this? And that's the question. For me, in my practice, it's all about safety. And thoracic disc herniations, especially calcified large thoracic disc herniations, I mean, those are the ones that you see the patient in the office, you look at the films, and you get a little bit of a heartbeat going, because you think, of all the things that can go wrong, and that's certainly something to consider. So you want to do the safest operation. We want to avoid complications, and I think there's nothing really better that we do than microsurgical decompression under direct visualization. And the question then is really, how much of that can you really achieve with the endoscope? This was a paper that I was involved with years ago when Uribe and others published a series of a lateral transthoracic tubular approach, similar to the XLIF approach at the time, but in the thoracic spine. The beauty of this approach is that overall it's very safe. You can do it minimally invasive through a small incision. You can harvest a piece of the rib. You don't always have to. You can go retropleural even. But the beauty then is that at the end of the day, you really do microsurgical surgery. Once you're at the target, you actually have two hands, you have the microscope, you have 3D visualization, and you can get there very quickly. Dr. Hofstetter, who I'm debating today, who is in the audience, what is he? I spent 45 minutes docking this camera. Roger would have finished the decompression already by now. He has a very, very strong Austrian accent. So anyway. But the beauty then is, once you look down, and here we're looking at the spine, you have the disc here. You have to create generous osteotomies then to really decompress the spinal cord and be able to push the disc away from the spinal cord. It's a mini open lateral approach, 3D visualization, very well described, overall very, very safe if done properly. And even high-grade thoracic calcified disc herniations can be treated. This is one of those cases where you kind of get a little bit of a heartbeat going when you look at the films. There's a calcified midline. And it's very interesting. I know in Europe you guys do those open with transdural sometimes. That's another approach that's kind of really interesting that in North America people don't really do. This one for me was a case clearly where you got to do this you can't do this with the endoscope safely. So we went lateral approach. I used a lot of navigation, and which is really speeds up the surgery, because especially in the thoracic spine, mid-thoracic spine, if you have to get a million X-rays, that really slows you down. And there are certain steps to the procedure. I'm not going to go through all of those, but again, the majority is really related to safety. You want to create a little bit of a defect in the bone where you can then push the calcified disc away from the spinal cord, so you're working away from the spinal cord. You can kind of dissect it off. The spinal cord is here, that's the disc herniation, and then so this is the back, that's the front of the patient, and that's that disc herniation that we're now at some point mobilizing, and it's really sticking into the spinal cord, but we create these cavities here, and then you can push that disc herniation away from the spinal cord very gently into those cavities. And then at the end of the day, then sometimes you stabilize it. You don't always have to stabilize it. What does Dr. Hofstetter have to say? I speak 5 languages, and in all of them, 3D microscopic visualization is superior to 2D. So we'll see what he says later. So then in the mid-thoracic spine, you don't always have to stabilize. Certainly in the lower thoracic spine, closer to the thoracolumbar junction, I used to stabilize patients. In this case, I think we did. And again, at the end of the day, I think endoscopic surgery, I'm sure there's a role for it. We just have to define it. And I would be very cautious, and I would not necessarily treat some of these larger disc herniations with real pathology and spinal cord compression with the endoscope. So it's not about the size, it's really about the decision. And loud transthoracic, the advantages. Again, the difference between tubes and the endoscope, in my opinion, the ability of microsurgical, you can actually work with 2 hands with regular instruments. You can see 3-dimensionally what you're working on. You have 3D visualization, and you have a broad spectrum really of indications nowadays for tubular surgery. With the endoscope, it's really a narrow window, I think, and you got to be a little bit careful in your decision making. I spent 4 years on a PhD and 10 years in practice, and I know because I've spent a lot of those years with him, just to realize that tubology was the answer all along. All right, Christoph, thanks. It's your turn.
Well, first, thank you, Roger, for inviting me, and Louis. One of my favorite, meetings, definitely, and that's going to be a tough, talk to follow here right now. Here are my disclosures. I just want to, kind of set the stage here a little bit. So, we're talking about a very rare pathology. So, less than 1% of all disc herniations are thoracic. Incidence is 1 out of a million, so very, very rare. And often they're, like ventral, located at this vein, and they're often calcified, and the larger one are even more commonly calcified, and that's how they typically present. Background, historically, high complication rates, up to 25%, prolonged inpatient hospitalization, frequent need for stabilization. And so Roger already showed the classification from Dr. Uribe, and I think that's really sort of has been changing the field and is extremely important. So we have type 0, where nobody would treat that, obviously. Type 1, which is small, less than 40%. Type 2, small and central. Then the giants, the paracentral and the central ones. And this classification system has a pretty good reliability in terms of inter-rater reliability. However, if you look at this classification, what surgeons actually would do with this classification, the inter-rater reliability for treatment is actually extremely poor. So for approach selection and for fixation. So I think we really have, whenever we see this, it really means that we don't know, right? So we don't know how to treat them. That's my take-home message from there. And so I want to show you a little bit of data here. We put a paper together with our ESRG group, first, before I get to the data, I want to honor here one of the first case reports on that was written by Dr. Wagner, who I'm going to honor a little bit later. So it was one of the first case reports, 31-year-old female that he treated for a T89 disc herniation, the trans-SAP technique, foraminoplasty, and was performed under local anesthesia with a good outcome. And so we put some data together and published that recently with our research group. And since it's such a rare pathology, we combined a meta-analysis with our multi-center data set. So there were 108 published studies, 3,000 patients for thoracic discectomy, and then we had a small parallel cohort of endoscopic discectomies from 8 institutions. The primary endpoints were complications, reoperations, and the need for instrumentation. On the right side, I put the table on there to kind of see that most of these discs are in the lower thoracic spine, and then central, paracentral, and foraminal is the most common ones are the central and the paracentral ones. And here's the data that is really going to be hard to debate. So complication rates between traditional and MIS is roughly 25%. In our endoscopic cohorts, around 10%. Reoperation rate is the same. The fusion rate is 37%. In open and MIS, in the endoscopic cohort, it's 14%. Estimated blood loss is 570 cc's versus 5 mLs. So that's, when you drink beer, that's a big difference. And length of stay 7 days versus 0.4 days. And they get 63% of the cases were outpatient surgery in the full endoscopic cohort. Now, I think there's a lot of, some couple of, so don't be sad. This is Dr. Härtl's approach, who is my mentor, and I'm eternally grateful to Roger for being my mentor. It's still a tube. So it's all good. We're just still talking about tubes. It's just a little smaller. My tube is smaller. And I want to conclude here right now, and then this is going to resolve everything because you saw it already coming. It's really, you put it there already. So full endoscopic spine surgery is becoming the treatment of choice for type 1 to 3. I think type 4, actually I do them often transdurally too, like in Europe. I think that's, you have better control, but we can debate that. I think grade 4, I would like to take out of this debate because that's not, I think doing those endoscopic, at least in my hands, is not a good idea. But grade 1 to 3, I think endoscopic spine surgery, looking at the data, is treatment of choice. It's less invasive. It can be done as an outpatient procedure, fewer complications. Type 4 remains surgically challenging, and I think maybe we can do that next year. I think there's more innovations coming, and the technology is going to increase the effectiveness for full endoscopic spine surgery. And then you see the picture on the right side, right? You saw it coming all the way. The benefit curve is right in the thoracic disc. You got that wrong all the time. So it's like really, it's really there. The benefit curve is in the thoracic disc. So that concludes this talk. Thank you.